Alexandr Volkov, the nickname is Drago. He comes into this weekend's co-main event having just headlined a card last June against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, knocked him out in the first round and took some time away. He's been in 7 UFC main events, 4-3 in those, and 1-0 in his co-main event slot against Greg Hardy. Volkov looking to turn away another hype prospect in King Kong Alexandr Romanov, representing Comrade Moldova. And for Moldova, 2 top fighters in the heavyweight division in Sergey Spivak and Romanov. But the weirdest part about this fight, Matt, is for Volkov, former M1 Global Heavyweight Champ. He got to the top of the mountain or close to it over with Bellator. He's had these big opportunities in the UFC, but hasn't really kind of been able to cash out on those chances. But when you look at it for Volkov, a main event slot last June gets first round knockout. Romanov, 16-0 going into a fight against Marcin Tybura. King Kong's in the first round. And then he's got nothing left in round 2 and round 3. Loses a majority decision. The only loss on Romanov's record. Now all of a sudden, he fights up in the rankings against Volkov. And newsflash, Romanov's the favorite in the fight. So it's really weird to see these circumstances getting Romanov into this fight. And for Volkov, appendicitis on his Instagram back in December, so hopefully the tummy ache that's the worst.
We all know that one kid in middle school who missed a week because they got appendicitis.
I haven't had it yet. That's why I call it a tummy ache. It's a joke. It's definitely bad, and it's probably really scary. So good for Volkov to get that addressed. And for Volkov, training for this fight, not at a Strela team or Extreme Couture or American Top Team, at a Black House MMA in California. So interesting to see that out of Volkov. For Romanov, not out of Extreme Couture, where he's been in the past. He's training back home at Lion Club Comrade, back in Moldova, getting back to his roots, just like that Florida Georgia Line song. Got to dig your roots.
Can I be honest?
The sun goes down.
I think this fight's going to be awful to watch.
You do?
I do, and this is why. Volkov at this stage of his career, and it really set in during the Greg Hardy fight, he's not a guy who's all that aggressive anymore.
He did in his last fight!
Because Jairzinho came at him, and then he countered him, hurt him, and dropped him.
Romanov's going to come at him.
He will, but he's not going to do it in the same manner. Romanov's going to come at you with threatening with his grappling and not the striking. When you're fighting Jairzinho, you have to worry about one thing, and it's a flurry the last 15 seconds of every single round. And other than that, it's a climbable mountain. It looks pretty big, but you'll get to the top of it. I just worry about Volkov and his overall aggressiveness at this stage of his career, because go back and watch the Greg Hardy fight. That's one of the worst fights of all time, and it's a fight that Volkov should have won in the first 30 seconds, if we're being honest. Now, I get it. You can't be all that aggressive against a guy like Hardy, because if he does knock you out in the first round, that is a huge hit to your career, but Volkov just went out there, threw the jab a couple times, waited for Greg Hardy to move forward, and wasn't all that aggressive with his own game plan in the matchup. And I do think there's a world where, oddly enough, Romanov, he's a guy who's known, of course, for his wrestling. He moves really well on the outside when he wants to, though. And that's where Romanov is going to have a big trouble with fighting the guys at the top level. He does a good job at moving on the outside. He doesn't do a good job planting his feet and then striking on the outside, but he does a good job at moving on the inside. His game is very much broken up into different segments, and it's going to be a matter of blending them all together. And we saw that, of course, in the Marcin Tybura fight. But even if you want to bring up the Tybura fight, did Volkov look that good when he beat him? Not really.
Romanov, in this fight, and in the last 2 years, 4 fights the sample size. Okay, so let's look at the wins, the convincing wins. He beats Jared Vandera, the Mountain. He beats Chase Sherman, the Gift King, from 2017.
2 lower-level heavyweights.
Win and a loss. The loss to Marcin Tybura, 10-8 first round. Then he loses the second round, loses the third round. Now,
do you think Volkov can do a good enough job defensively to get out of that round if he is on the verge of a 10-8 loss?
But that's the trouble. You look at that technical decision win that he has against Juan Espino. He wins the first round handily, and then second round gets harder, third round gets harder. There's the illegal strike, and then they go to a judge's scorecard. It's weird. Romanov can do everything in the first round. He can do most things in the second round. The third round, it's questionable. But for Romanov, what we saw in the regional scene was stance switches, long from southpaw. When he's out on the distance, he's able to land whatever strikes he wants to land. So training back home, Lion Club Comrade, really looking forward to it from Romanov. But the struggle is, if he can't get past the first round, or if it does go past the first round, he can tend to struggle. And for Volkov, you look at it, UFC is what it is, 9-4 there, former M1 Global Champ, had some really good fights over with Bellator, 71% takedown defense, and that takes into account 14 takedowns from Curtis Blades and 2 from Tom Aspinall in the first round that landed him into a submission win. So you might hold that fight with a lot of water. So positive strike differential, he strikes more than the average bear. when it does come to those strikes, 4.88 to 3.04 absorbed. For Volkov, keeping it on the feet, putting on the Ritz like that old taco song, and going out there and putting on a veteran-savvy performance against Romanov. But to me, again, it's a weird bit of matchmaking for me looking at
it. It is a weird bit of matchmaking, but the problem is, I want to favor with the underdog in this, but I keep on running into the fact that Romanov was able to take down a guy like Marcin Tybura, who's a great takedown artist in his own right, and a great grappler. And it's not that Volkov can't defend takedowns, because like you had brought up, he does do a good job at defending a high volume of takedowns, but once he does get taken down and once he's flat on his back, his size is a bit of a disadvantage at that point. He has very long legs. It's kind of difficult for him to regain his base and get back up to his feet. And that's why I posed the question, can he survive that first round if he has been taken down and is on the verge of a 10-8? Because let's say Romanov is able to go out there and get a takedown in the first 50, 45 seconds of the round. Romanov has that big of an advantage out the get-go that I do think he can finish a guy like Volkov.
And I made the mistake, and I'm going to talk about cartilage and Leatherby in the next fight. To be clear, for the Romanov fight against Marcin Tybura, 10-8 was scored in the first round by Derek Cleary, and then he scored the other 2 rounds for Tybura. For Sal D'Amato and for Michael Bell, the first round was not enough for Romanov, who in that first round went 64-1 in total strikes and 4 minutes and 27 seconds of control time. If that's not a 10-8, I don't know what is. Alexandr Romanov is favored to win the fight, open the underdog, plus 130, minus 140. Volkov open, minus 150,
I'm
plus 120.
About these Tapology votes.
We have a look at the Tapology picks. Matt, over, under, I'm going to say 65% Romanov.
I think it'll be under. I think Volkov would be the favorite.
And he is. So 755 total votes, 66% Volkov, 43% by decision, 51% by knockout for the 34% that have Romanov, 43% by submission, 19% by TKO. Matt, this is going to be a weird deep dive. Do you think your buddy Tim Rose is going to be happy at the end of the night? Does he think Volkov's going to win?
He does. He's been pretty confident about Volkov in this matchup because of his ability to defend the takedown. My problem is, how much offense is Alexandr Volkov going to be able to get off in this fight? Like, I think he could do a 9.5 out of 10 job defensively with the takedowns and with the striking. But the thing is, how confident is he going to be with some of his long-range strikes? Because Volkov has great technique. He has pretty good power. I don't think anybody's ever going to accuse him of breaking the speed limit with his strikes by any means. Like, he does have a bit of a long recoil. There is a bit of a reset to his strikes. And that's why I think this fight might be a bit of a stale one. Because if Romanov is able to win that first round, similar to the last time, let's say he can get the 10-8, Volkov might win round 2 and 3, but it's going to be by an edge of like 4 significant strikes in round 2 and maybe 6 in round 3. Like, I just think this fight's going to be close no matter how you cut it. I will pick the underdog though, because again, Volkov I've seen in 5-round atmospheres, and I know that he does have the lasting power against guys like Curtis Blaydes, because for the longest time I used to make you roll your eyes because I used to say, hey, Volkov might have got beat that whole entire fight, but he looked pretty good in the 5th round. He was landing damaging strikes. He really made a good account of himself after being so exhausted in the matchup. So I don't have a ton of confidence in the pick, but I like the underdog Volkov with his amount of experience.
And for me, with a guy like Alexandr Romanov and the game plan that was out there from Mr. Tom Aspinall, can't wait to see him get back, I'll go with King Kong Alexandr Romanov in the fight. I think that threat of the takedown in the first round, Volkov training in the States, I'm sure at Black House MMA, there's going to be plenty of wrestlers there. That was one of those prime gyms way back when. But when you look at it for Romanov, getting back to his roots, going out there, getting the finish, I'm going to go with Romanov. So we're split on the pick of the Alexanders. Matt going with Drago, me going with King Kong. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have in this fight. I'm really eager to see where these two guys weigh in at, because Volkov shredded a little bit of the pounds, gained a back piece. We'll see how it plays out for both these guys. A big giant fight in the bantamweight division in that main event. Holy smokes, Jan versus Dvalishvili. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.